6 miles apart
You
here.
got it. Isn't that amazing? And when she found out about it, George, she forbade Louis from having any contact with Grace, Gladys, or Raymond.
Okay, that's fascinating.
George told me that despite all of Louis's flaws, he did feel close to his grandfather in one fundamental way. Louis Martin, he knew, had been born Luigi Mazzacola in Italy and had immigrated to America as a child. George is proud of this aspect of his heritage and wanted to know more about it. But just as we were about to send a researcher to Italy to look for records of his family, we noticed something odd in George's DNA. Do you think your fans have the remotest idea that you have Italian roots?
No. I mean, I haven't been shy about that. I often say in interviews, you know, that George R. R. Martin could be Giorgio Mazzacola.
I like that. All right, let's see what we found out about your ancestry. Ready?
Sure.
Please turn the page. George, this is what's called an admixture test, and it reveals your ancestry percentages over approximately the past 500 years, roughly since the time of Columbus.
Wow.
Would you please read this chart?
British and Irish. Well, okay, that's no surprise. Boy, that's big there.
What percentage British and Irish?
53.6%.
Mm-hmm. Keep going, George.
15.6 broadly Northern.
Keep going. Look more closely. You're what?
Wow. 22.4% Ashkenazi Jewish. That's interesting.
This number was more than interesting. It was revelatory. 22.4% is roughly equivalent to what would be inherited from a grandparent of full Jewish ancestry. But George wasn't aware that he had even one Jewish ancestor, and we had found no evidence of any in his paper trail. His mother's family were English and Irish. His father's family, German and Italian. At least, that's what George thought before we analyzed his DNA.
So I'm trying to figure this out here with what I know my family heritage is not adding up here. Where is the Jewish coming in?
What's missing from that chart?
The Italians.
The Italians. There's no Italian.
Okay, that's shocking.
As Louis's grandson, George should have been about 25% Italian, but the DNA was telling a dramatically different story.
So you're saying Louis was not my grandfather?
We don't know. We have to explore, but if Louis is Italian and he's your biological grandfather, that chart's got to be different. It's just a scientific fact. So in order to be sure, we needed to perform more DNA testing on your relatives.
Oh, okay.
We returned to Louis's grandchildren and asked one of them, a man named Joel, to take a DNA test for us. We then compared Joel's genetic profile to George's, looking to see what the two men shared. At last, the moment of truth was at hand. Now, I'm going to show you a chart that illustrates what we found. It's going to highlight in red any DNA that you share with Joel. If Louis is your biological grandfather, then Joel should be your half-first cousin, which means that you should have about 6% of your DNA in common with each other, right?
Right.
You know, the brothers on the street say, DNA don't lie.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if you aren't related, you won't see any red at all. Ready for the moment of truth?
Sure.
Turn that page. See any red on there?
So I'm not related to Louis.
We also checked Joel's admixture, and he has a significant amount of Italian DNA, which you do not.
But I love pizza.
Yeah.
And that's why I have hair.
Yeah.
And Louis had no hair. Does Joel have any hair?
George, I don't know how to put this to you more directly, but this leads us to conclude that Joel actually is the biological grandson of Louis Martin, while you are not, definitely not. Instead, your biological grandfather was a man of Ashkenazi Jewish descent.
It's uprooting my world here. It doesn't make any sense here.
Yes.
So I'm descended from mystery.
Mystery is the word for it. We were unable to learn any more about George's grandfather. We don't know his name, We don't know where he came from, and we don't know how he met George's grandmother, Grace. But his very existence raised the compelling question. So who was cheating on whom?
Yeah.
You've always presumed that Louis cheated and left Grace